Doug and the Bio Babes.
Doug and the Bio Babes.
Doug, 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 Doug. Doug and the Bio Babes.
Microorganisms rule.
Doug and the Bio Babes. Doug, 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 Doug. Doug and the Bio Babes.
It's cold out here. Like, really cold. You know where else it's cold? The bottom of the ocean. It's like 2 degrees cold there. Can't support much life. But what if there were places warmer than that? Like hot. Like really hot. Like middle of the earth hot. Well, those places exist. And they're kind of like this hot tub in the middle of winter.
They're called hydrothermal vents. They're made by fissures in the Earth's crust. They're being pumped with water that's geothermically heated. This water is hot. Like hot. Like that hot.
It's so hot that it can dissolve nutrients out of rocks like hot water from the tap dissolves salt. It leaves the water really rich in hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs. As the nutrient-rich water spews out of the vent, it encounters the cold water of the deep ocean, and the dissolved nutrients all precipitate out. You can see this as a black cloud over top of the vents. Precipitating solids eventually form chimneys around these vents that support life.
Those hydrogen sulfides dissolved in the water are used by the microorganisms found here as a source of energy. This means that those microorganisms are this ecosystem's primary producers. Primary producers. Kind of like plants here on Earth. The difference is that these microorganisms produce the energy at extremely high temperatures and no light. Hey, what's going on here?
This process is called chemosynthesis.
Hydrogen sulfides react with carbon dioxide and oxygen to produce carbohydrates and sulfuric acid.
Although it is not as efficient as photosynthesis because there's less energy available in hydrogen sulfide compared to light.
Not only do these microorganisms act as primary producers, they also create symbiotic relationships with the invertebrates found in these areas. A symbiotic relationship is when the two organisms depend on each other, kind of like me and my new best friend here.
The microorganisms live inside the gut of the tube worm. Because the tube worm is unable to break down its own food, it relies entirely on the microorganisms living inside its gut.
There's a symbiotic relationship there.
Some microorganisms found around these vents are free-living. They tend to clump together to form web-like structures.
All of this means that in hydrothermal vent communities, microorganisms are
at the bottom of the food chain!
Hydrothermal vents are considered an extreme environment. They're located at the bottom of the ocean, so of course that means there's lots of pressure there from the water above. All of that pressure means that the organisms in the area are piezophilic. Close to the vent, the water is hot. It could be more than boiling. Organisms that live there are thermophilic. Far away from the vent, it's cold, so the organisms that dwell there are called psychrophils.
Microorganisms found on the edges of vent communities, away from the heat of vents, have adapted to the cold. One of the ways they've done this is by cold acclimation protein, which allow prolonged, though stunted, growth. In the microorganisms closer to the vent, proteins tend to assume a globular shape, with hydrophilic aspects on the outside and hydrophobic on the inside. Hydrophilic means attracted to water. Hydrophobic means repelled by water. As temperature increases to 100 degrees Celsius and above, water starts to lose its integrity as a liquid. As a consequence, microorganisms found in these temperature ranges cannot rely on hydrophilic and hydrophobic tendencies to keep their protein shape. Instead, their proteins rely on ionic bonds to keep their structure. Microorganisms that have adapted to life in different areas around vent can't travel from one temperature zone to another. In some vent communities, this becomes a matter of decimeters.
It'd be like taking a dip in a hot tub, wearing full winter gear. Or taking a walk outside in the middle of winter in nothing but a bathing suit.
It's cold!
Just more lethal.
These microorganisms are being used in evolutionary study because of their unique characteristics and their ability to survive in such harsh environments. These communities are actually thought to be one of the oldest on Earth today. They are also being used in the study of life on other planets. I mean, if they don't need sun to produce energy, who knows what the other possibilities are? Maybe we aren't alone in this universe.
Doug and the Bio Babes. Doug, 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 Doug. Doug and the Bio Babes. Doug, 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 Doug. Doug and the Bio Babes.